The Brian Crabtree Show on Demand is brought to you by The Outlet Online. Huge savings on items you want. It's a big deal. TheOutletOnline.com. The Brian Crabtree Show, live in Atlanta, afternoon starting at 4 on Biz 1190, Biz1190.com, and the Biz 1190 mobile app.
Brian Crabtree. The Brian Crabtree Show.
Talk40.com, we have a health segment on there. We can read some of the stories about health news as they come out. We post them there, plus the main screen for the highlights right there in the blog section on the main page, Talk40.com. If you miss an important topic and you want to know how to analyze it, Talk40.com from the Brian Crabtree Show. Healthcare, health insurance. This thing is imploding before our very eyes. We've lost BlueCross BlueShield in much of Georgia now. So the best option of healthcare in the Obamacare exchange, it's evaporating. We're down to just a couple of insurance companies, mainly Ambetter, which I had. It's terrible, and Kaiser Permanente. I don't know if there's anything left. Am I forgetting the third one? I don't know, but we're going to bring in our insurance expert to talk about what actually is happening and what's the way forward, because the Senate failure, the Trump failure, the Congress failure in doing anything about fixing the implosion called Obamacare. Mike Iverson's been talking with us about this for a couple of years now. Snellings Walters Insurance in Atlanta, snellingswalters.com.
Good to be back, Brian.
All right, let's look in the rearview mirror here just a little bit. Health insurance, Congress out of session. The Senate's not there. They failed to do anything with regard to repealing and replacing Obamacare. I presume when they come back, it'll be some of the order of business. Looks like tax reform is going to be part of it. What do you expect to happen in terms of health care and health insurance from a legislative standpoint over the next few months to balance out this year?
Well, what do I expect to happen, or what do I want to happen? Those are two very different things. And the expectation, this is like the third rail that nobody wants to touch, own, or even deal with. And so for our people, for the people out there, anybody on the exchange, it means continued pain. Right here in Georgia, lots of people are being non-renewed by BlueCross BlueShield, who says, hey, we are no longer going to play in the majority of the state.
So they're not going to play the majority of the state on the Obamacare exchange. They've been perhaps the best option, a little bit expensive, but the best option on Obamacare that's meaningful health insurance. What do those people do now? Do they just go to a lesser quality form of coverage, or is there something else out there? Where do those people go in the interim?
Well, they're going to continue to feel the pinch. So anybody who has some health issues, they're going to feel fewer options than ever before. So they're going to have smaller networks. Anybody who's left on the exchange inside of their zip codes, they're going to have even fewer doctors than they ever had before. So this thing's imploding, and most people don't see it coming. It's coming like a freight train. And I think what you have now is the motivation from the Democrats. You're going to see I think the Trump administration turn around and say, so why fix it? Let's just wait. Let's wait it out and watch it implode.
I don't know if that's
so motivations.
Is that a good idea, though? I mean, is that, in your view, is that a good idea? I mean, I know from an insurance expert standpoint, you'd say no, but factor in politics, not your political views. But if you've tried politically to get something done, you've tried several times, there's not the appetite to do it. Is it just best to wait until there's a complete catastrophe in front of us with regard to people's coverage, and maybe that's when something meaningful gets done? Or is it better to just do what you can?
Yeah, I think if you wanted to make a strict political play, if you're a Republican, why would you even pick it up? Just let it blow up. Democrats know where it's going. They just don't want to deal with the fix, and they certainly don't want to cooperate on the fix right now. They don't feel that they have to. So when you have a chance to hand somebody else the hot potato, that's what they're seeking to do. And so at the end of it all is something cataclysmic. It's going to be awful for a lot of people, and this is the painful part. Morally, I believe we need to do something. And I mean that from a point of view that people who know and can see what's going to occur, they have a responsibility to be shouting from the rooftops that bad things are coming. The problem is most people don't see it, and most people don't believe it.
Mike Iverson with us, snellingswalters.com, insurance in Atlanta. Mike, perhaps one of the reasons many don't see this is because their employer has worked with a firm like yours, and they have group health insurance for 50, 500, 5,000 employees. And they have a much different scenario going on because they're able to proactively contain costs not that costs aren't rising internally, but the people paying their insurance through their payroll every month don't necessarily feel the struggles of the network, of the cost going through the roof. Does that at some point change where they start to feel it because of the rest of the insurance market, or does that stay and remain isolated from this?
I believe you'll continue to see it isolated off to the side. And you're exactly right. If you look at statistics, nearly 60% of the population is getting its insurance through an employer-sponsored plan. So the vast majority of Americans are getting it through employer-sponsored plans. They're not being impacted. A very small, let's just look at the number of people participating on the exchange, and let's use the big number, right? Let's use all the people who are on there for Medicaid, all the other things. So we'll go high. That is less than 10% of the population.
Yeah, so in
the end, less than 1 out of 10 people is what we're talking about. And when we look at really the health insurance component of that, that's less than half of that number.
So
now we're down to 4% of the population.
In your view, because you're managing bigger group plans at Snelling's Walters, and those people are employees, they're making a decent wage, they have good care, they have help in getting care because their employers are taking, and your firm is taking a proactive role with them. But have they experienced, in terms of quality of care, the amount of time they get in their care, the access to care, have those, not just the people you're seeing, but in the general 60% of the population getting their health insurance from their employers, are they experiencing any degradation in care or access because of Obamacare? Or where's the rip there? Where are they getting hosed?
Yeah, I think that anybody who goes to a doctor realizes they're spending less time with their doctor than they ever did before. Meaning, he or she makes a brief appearance with you. You see the nurse practitioner and the nurses much more than you used to, and the doctor on a much more limited basis. And so what you have is you have this push. Whatever gets measured, right? Whenever we start to measure something, people realize that's important, and then they start to focus on it. So there are more and more doctors being measured by getting the number of people through as opposed to spending more time with them. They're being measured on their efficiency for their reimbursements.
And so as we've talked about this before, it could be that it's that the doctors are spending more time compliance and paperwork. They're having to hire staff, more compliance and more paperwork, which is less time with the patients. The same thing's happening at the employee level. There's so much they have to do in the payroll side of this to comply with Obamacare rules, which do impact, albeit isolated, the insurance market of the employer market. And so what's really happening is there's a lot of red tape that's reducing productivity in businesses and thus reducing productivity in the medical field in terms of patient care. But that's sort of being baked in and managed. And so are you seeing a lot of employees complain about that factor, or do they really sense that's happening?
Yeah, I think the employees get caught in between, and I can speak for some of the things that we get involved with at Snelling's Walters. We get involved with helping create more steerage for employees so they're aware that they can ask their doctor about substituting medications and a host of other things, right? If they're not armed, they're going to be at the mercy of the system. And the Affordable Care Act has made it much more of a government system because there is a lot of compliance with the system. And so what's happened is doctors are focused on, we have to get patients through, we have to get them through quickly. Maybe they don't have as much time to think about how much does this drug actually going to cost my patient. They say, hey, I wrote my prescription, I moved on down the road. They treated them effectively, but they don't have the extra moments to figure out how expensive is that drug, and is there an identical substitute? And maybe that identical substitute is 1/8 the cost. They don't have time for that. They just don't.
Yeah, I mean,
so that's where we have found ourselves having to get much more involved in advocating for the employee and for the employer.
I mean, that plus if it's a non-covered drug, sometimes you can find a swing of $100, $200, $300 just using a prescription discount card for those people that don't have coverage. I went to fill a prescription shampoo the other day, and the cost of that shampoo is $150, and my insurance doesn't cover that. And so I think by the time I was done with it, it was $72 with the Good RX discount card. So it's really, shopping for your medicine, shopping for your doctors, dealing with your health insurance has almost become bargain shopping on Black Friday. You can get that television for $79, but you better be in line, you better be there early, and you better know what the details are, because otherwise it'll get ripped right out from under you. And that's at every level of our care. We've got to be more empowered. Now, let me move on in the time we have left, Mike. Mike Iverson with us, SnellingsWalters.com Insurance here in Atlanta. You say that it's an isolated market, the employer healthcare market, which is 60% of all insurance plans in the health business nationwide. But I have this concern. Let me play this out politically, have you respond to it. Let's say the Republicans get nothing done. Let's say the Democrats take over in 2018. You still got a Trump veto for anything that doesn't make sense. Let's say Trump doesn't get reelected. This seems like a long way off, but it's just 3 years. Then we end up we have a collapsed Obamacare system. Democrats in that kind of power again they had in 2009. We could end up with a full-blown and likely would have a full-blown single-payer system, which then starts to change what employers can and cannot do. What would that, if we had a single-payer government system instituted, like they have in Canada, Britain, Australia, what would that do to the employer health insurance market, and describe how that would feel?
Yeah, so remember this, that all health insurance claims, let's just use how claims work. You go to the doctor, your bill gets processed, 45 days later, essentially, everything's being paid from the day of treatment, right? So there's this 40-day float of money. So what we do is we're giving the government a 45-day float of money. We pay the premium. They don't have to pay the bill till 45 days later. They actually have an unfair competitive advantage against all the other insurance companies who are kind of now current with their claims, because those early days are over with. And the single payer, every design that I've ever seen behind single payer is exempt from taxes that all the private insurers are. So essentially what we've done is we've said, hey, government, take over this industry. You don't have to pay taxes, but they do. So we should expect when we run into a single payer, it won't be fast, it won't be immediate. It'll be over the course of a few years. The traditional health insurers will be run out of business. And some people say, hey, that's great. It makes us highly efficient. We'll find all these savings. Well, now we turn around and have to look at the fact that doctors are impacted, offices, how many people want to be in the medical industry, and what happens in lines. So if you look at the birth of supplement medical plans, so the health insurance isn't enough, these things are on fire all over the world. They're huge in China. They're huge all throughout Europe. They're big in Canada. It's wraparound. How do you get to the front of the line? And you want an unequal system. When you want an unequal system, take away health insurance that pays, right, and pays according to a doctor's desire to be in the network or not. Make it a simple reimbursement from the government at the rates that they set and choose. And these doctors are going to turn around and say to the wealthiest Americans, you know what, why don't you just pay me $10,000 a year, and I'll take care of you from now on. And you don't even have to be inside of the system.
Yeah, and so you would have the single payer system for the catastrophic coverage, but otherwise you would just have first access to a doctor by paying what maybe is a health insurance bill already.
So now you have people who wait 6, 8, 10 months. And in the end, if you're going to pinch down on control costs, which every government in the world has done, England, very good example. They've looked at people and said, what is their life value? This is a 70-year-old who has cancer. Their life value isn't great for our country, so it doesn't make sense to offer them treatment. Here in the U.S., we have choices, and the health insurance can't deny it. But you can't sue the government.
Yeah. Well, that's true. And it's like we want to back up, and many in the country want to back up and go backwards in terms of the quality of care and the quality of the system we have, which is exactly what's happened in Britain and Canada. Let's leave it there. That is a fascinating coverage of what would happen in single payer, and I hope we don't get there. It is a ways off, but I think that's what people need to be mindful of. SnellingsWalters.com, Mike Iverson. You've been hearing from him. He's our insurance expert. Mike, give your phone number. I've given the website. Yeah, it's www.snellingswalters.com, and the phone number is 770-396-9600, and we work with driving better outcomes for everybody, employees and employers. Mike, thank you so much.
The Brian Crabtree Show on Demand is brought to you by The Outlet Online. Huge savings on items you want. It's a big deal. TheOutletOnline.com. The Brian Crabtree Show, Live in Atlanta, afternoon starting at 4 on Biz 1190, Biz1190.com, and the Biz 1190 mobile app.